Story 1. I've been teaching advanced placement chemistry at Westlake High School for almost 12 years now. It's a challenging course, but I take pride in preparing my students for college-level work. Last semester, however, I found myself in the middle of a situation that had nothing to do with chemistry and everything to do with entitlement and deception. My top student that year was Elena Martinez, a brilliant young woman who had a natural talent for the sciences. She was hardworking, always prepared, and genuinely passionate about chemistry. Her lab reports were college level, and she never scored below a 95% on any exam. She was on track to be our school's valedictorian and had already received early acceptance to MIT. Then there was Tyler Wilson. Tyler was, well, let's just say chemistry wasn't his strong suit. He struggled with the basic concepts, rarely completed homework assignments, and his test scores hovered around the C- range. What made matters worse was that he rarely asked for help during my office hours, despite my many offers. The trouble began after our midterm exam. Elena scored a perfect 100%, which wasn't surprising. What was surprising was Tyler's score, 98%. It was completely out of character for him, but I initially chalked it up to him finally buckling down and studying. The next day, I received an email from Tyler's mother requesting a meeting. I'd met Mrs. Wilson briefly at parent-teacher conferences and remembered her as being quite insistent that Tyler was gifted despite his poor performance. When she arrived in my classroom after school, she was all smiles and designer clothes. "Woman, thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Reynolds. I wanted to discuss Tyler's recent exam." Me, of course. I was quite impressed with his improvement. Did he find a study method that worked particularly well for him? Instead of answering my question, she placed a folder on my desk. "Woman, actually, I'm concerned about cheating in your class." This caught me off guard. Me cheating? I take academic integrity very seriously, Mrs. Wilson. What concerns do you have? "Woman, I believe Elena Martinez cheated off my son's paper." I stared at her in disbelief. Elena cheat off Tyler. It was more likely that the sun would rise in the west. Me, that's a very serious accusation, Mrs. Wilson. What evidence do you have? She opened the folder and pulled out some papers. "Woman, Tyler has been studying with a private tutor for months. He knows this material inside and out, but he told me that during the test, he noticed Elena kept looking at his paper. And look at their answers, they're almost identical." She showed me photocopies of both exam papers. Indeed, many of the answers were very similar, but that wasn't unusual for multiple choice questions and standard chemistry problems that had only one correct answer. Me, Mrs. Wilson, similar correct answers don't indicate cheating. And frankly, Elena has consistently been my top student, while Tyler has struggled all year. Her smile tightened. "Woman, are you suggesting my son isn't intelligent enough to get a good grade on his own? He worked very hard for this." Me, I'm not suggesting anything about Tyler's intelligence. I'm simply stating facts about his past performance in my class. "Woman, well, the facts are that my son scored nearly perfect on this exam, fair and square, and that girl copied his answers. I want her reported to the Academic Integrity Board." I took a deep breath. Me, I'll look into the matter, but I need more substantial evidence before making any accusations against a student with Elena's record. "Woman, her record? What about her background? You know her parents are immigrants, right? Maybe they have different ideas about academic honesty where they come from." I felt my blood pressure rising at the thinly veiled prejudice. Me, Mrs. Wilson, Elena was born in this country, and her parents are both medical professionals who value education highly. I won't entertain baseless stereotypes in this discussion. "Woman, fine, but I expect you to investigate this thoroughly. My husband sits on the school board, you know." And there it was, the implied threat. I assured her I would look into it, if only to end the conversation, and she left satisfied that she had put me in my place. The next day, I discreetly spoke with Elena after class. "Me, Elena, I wanted to talk to you about the midterm exam." Elena, is everything okay? Mr. Reynolds, did I make a mistake somewhere? Me? No, your exam was perfect. But there's been an accusation of cheating. Elena's face fell and her eyes widened. Elena, cheating. But I would never. Me? I know. Elena, I don't believe you cheated. But Tyler's mother has raised concerns about similarities between your answers and his. Elena looked confused. Elena, Tyler Wilson. But he sits on the other side of the room from me. How could I have seen his paper? That was a good point. According to our seating chart, Tyler and Elena were separated by several rows of desks. Me, that's what I thought. Don't worry, I'm not accusing you of anything. I just wanted to give you a heads up because Mrs. Wilson seems determined to pursue this. Elena bit her lip nervously. Elena, Mr. Reynolds, I think there's something you should know. Last week, Tyler texted me asking for my study notes. I sent them to him because I thought he was finally taking the class seriously. I have the text to prove it. She pulled out her phone and showed me the message exchange. Indeed, Tyler had asked for her notes specifically for the topics that ended up on the midterm. But before I could look further into it, Mrs. Wilson escalated the situation by going straight to the principal. By the next morning, both Elena and I were called into Principal Davidson's office. To my dismay, Mrs. Wilson was there with Tyler, along with her husband, who introduced himself as a school board member with a firm handshake that was clearly meant to intimidate. Principal Davidson, thank you all for coming. Mrs. Wilson has raised some serious concerns about academic integrity regarding the recent chemistry midterm. Woman, yes, and I'd like to add that we've since discovered that Elena has been supplying answers to other students as well. She's running a little cheating ring. Elena gasped. Elena, that's not true. I've never. Mr. Wilson, we have evidence. Tyler discovered a group chat where Elena was sharing answers before the test. Tyler looked uncomfortable but nodded in agreement with his father. Principal Davidson turned to Elena. Principal Davidson, these are very serious allegations. Elena, if true, they could affect your college acceptance. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but she straightened her shoulders. Elena, I never shared answers with anyone. I did share my study notes with Tyler because he asked for them, but that was before the test, and it was just my notes from class. I stepped in. Me, Principal Davidson, I find it hard to believe that Elena would need to cheat. She's consistently been the top student in not just my class, but all her app courses. Woman, are you calling my son a liar? The tension in the room was palpable. Just then, there was a knock on the door. It was Mr. Garcia, our school's technology coordinator. Mr. Garcia, sorry to interrupt, but I was told there was an issue with a group chat that needed to be verified. Principal Davidson, yes, come in. The Wilsons claim there's evidence of students sharing test answers in a group chat. Mr. Garcia asked to see the evidence, and Tyler reluctantly handed over his phone. After a few minutes of examination, Mr. Garcia frowned. Mr. Garcia, this appears to be an altered screenshot. The timestamps don't match up with the message metadata, and there are signs of digital manipulation. These messages were fabricated. The room fell silent. Then Mr. Wilson exploded. Mr. Wilson, that's ridiculous. Why would Tyler fake something like this? Principal Davidson, perhaps we should check the school's test security footage. That statement seemed to drain the color from both Tyler's and Mrs. Wilson's faces. Me, we have security cameras in the classroom. Principal Davidson, we installed them last month after the equipment theft. They're mainly focused on the supply cabinets, but they do capture most of the room. Within 30 minutes, we were all watching footage from the midterm exam day. The video clearly showed Elena focused on her own paper throughout the test. But it also showed something else. Tyler repeatedly glancing at a small device hidden in his sleeve, which looked suspiciously like a smartwatch. Mr. Garcia zoomed in on the footage. Mr. Garcia, that appears to be a smartwatch. All electronic devices are supposed to be left in backpacks during exams. Further investigation revealed that Tyler had photographed parts of Elena's study notes, which contained similar practice problems to those on the test, and uploaded them to his watch. He had also zoomed in on her paper during a previous pop quiz when they were seated closer together. The Wilsons' accusations fell apart completely when 3 other students came forward, revealing that Tyler had tried to recruit them into an actual cheating ring, promising access to tests in exchange for money or favors. By the end of the day, Tyler had confessed to everything. The Wilsons left the school in humiliation, Mr. Wilson threatening lawsuits that never materialized. 2 days later, he resigned from the school board, citing personal reasons. Tyler received a 0 on the midterm and academic probation. Elena was completely exonerated and received a formal apology from the school. At graduation that spring, Elena gave a moving valedictorian speech about integrity and perseverance in the face of obstacles. She never mentioned the incident directly, but everyone knew what she was referring to when she said, "True success cannot be stolen or fabricated. It comes only through honest work and genuine understanding." As for Mrs. Wilson, I still see her occasionally at school events for her younger daughter. She always avoids making eye contact with me or Elena's family. Tyler transferred to a private school, but reportedly still struggles academically without his cheating tactics. The whole ordeal taught our school community a valuable lesson about entitlement and false accusations. But mostly, I'm proud of Elena for standing her ground when her hard-earned reputation was threatened. She's now thriving at Métis, while I'm still here, teaching chemistry and keeping a much closer eye on my students during exams. Story 2. I've been working at Seaside Grill for almost 2 years now. It's a popular local restaurant in our beachside town, and I'm a host there, which means I greet customers, assign tables, and sometimes help out with busing when we're short-staffed. It's a good job with great coworkers, including my friend Ellie. Ellie has been deaf since birth. She's an amazing server, super attentive, great memory, incredibly efficient. She reads lips really well and can speak clearly, though she prefers to communicate through writing for more complex orders to avoid any miscommunication. The restaurant has little notepads at every table anyway for customers to write special requests, so this works out perfectly. Our regulars love her, and most new customers quickly adjust once they realize she's deaf. Most customers, but not all of them, and definitely not the woman I now refer to as menu-throwing Karen. It happened last Saturday during our dinner rush. We were packed, with a 45-minute wait for tables. I was juggling the wait list, fielding phone calls, and trying to keep the crowd in the lobby from getting restless. That's when this woman walked in with what I assumed was her husband and 2 teenage kids. She marched straight up to my host's stand, bypassing the line of people waiting to put their names on the list. "Karen, table for 4. Now." Me. "Hi there, welcome to Seaside Grill. As you can see, we have quite a wait right now. It's about 45 minutes for a table. Would you like to add your name to the wait list?" Karen looked at me like I'd suggested she eat off the floor. "Karen, 45 minutes? That's ridiculous. We're hungry now. Just give us the next available table." Her husband looked embarrassed. "Husband, honey, we can wait, or we can try somewhere else." Karen, "No, I want to eat here. These other people probably haven't been waiting that long anyway." An older gentleman who had been waiting patiently turned around. "Gentlemen, actually, we've been waiting for 30 minutes already." Karen ignored him completely and kept staring at me expectantly. Me. "I'm sorry, but I have to seat parties in the order they arrive. It wouldn't be fair to the other customers who've been waiting." Karen, "Fine. Put our name on your little list then, but I expect you to find us a table faster than 45 minutes. I added her name to the wait list and suggested they could wait at the bar area, which had a few open seats. They went to the bar, but I could see Karen scanning the restaurant, probably looking for empty tables. What she didn't understand is that we had several servers call out sick, so even though there were a couple of empty tables, We couldn't seat them because the remaining servers were already handling their maximum capacity. About 20 minutes later, I noticed Karen approaching a table that had just been cleared but not yet cleaned or reset. Me. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but that table hasn't been prepared yet. We'll call your name as soon as your table is ready. Karen. It looks perfectly fine to me. Well, take it. She actually started pulling out chairs for her family. I had to call my manager, Dave, who came over and politely, but firmly explained that they needed to wait their turn. Karen huffed but went back to the bar. Another 20 minutes passed, and their turn finally came up. By some cosmic coincidence, or maybe karma, Ellie was assigned as their server. I led them to their table, gave them menus, and let them know their server would be with them shortly. A few minutes later, I noticed Karen waving her arms frantically from across the restaurant. I was busy with another customer, so I couldn't go over immediately. By the time I finished, Ellie had approached their table with her usual warm smile and notepad in hand. Ellie introduced herself by pointing to her name tag and then pointing to her ear and shaking her head, her simple way of letting customers know she's deaf. She then pointed to the notepad, indicating they could write down any special instructions. From where I stood, I could see Karen's expression change from impatient to confused to annoyed in the span of seconds. She started speaking rapidly to Ellie, who was trying to read her lips but clearly struggling because Karen was talking too fast and kept turning her head toward her family while speaking. Ellie touched her ear again and pointed to the notepad, smiling patiently. That's when Karen's voice got loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. Karen, what do you mean you can't hear me? How are you supposed to take our order if you can't hear? This is ridiculous. Ellie remained calm and wrote something on her notepad, then showed it to Karen. I assume it was something like, I can take your order by reading what you write down. Karen, I'm not going to write down my order. That's your job. We've already waited forever for a table, and now we get stuck with a server who can't even hear. People at nearby tables were starting to stare. Ellie tried once more to communicate by pointing to the notepad, but Karen was having none of it. Karen, I want a different server. Now, get me someone who can actually do their job. Ellie nodded politely and went to find our manager. Dave came over to the table immediately, and I could see him explaining the situation. I continued seating customers but kept an eye on what was happening. Dave was calmly explaining something to Karen, probably telling her that Ellie was one of our best servers and that writing down specific requests actually reduced errors. But Karen kept shaking her head and pointing in Ellie's direction, who was standing nearby waiting for the outcome. Suddenly, Karen picked up the menu and threw it directly at Ellie, who didn't react quickly enough to dodge it. The menu hit her in the chest and fell to the floor. The entire restaurant went silent. Dave's friendly demeanor vanished instantly. Dave. Ma'am, I need you and your family to leave, now. Karen. What? You can't kick us out. We're customers. Dave. Not anymore. You just physically assaulted one of my staff members. You are no longer welcome in this establishment. Karen. I didn't assault anyone. It was just a menu. This place is discriminating against me because I want a server who can hear my order. Karen's husband stood up, his face bright red with embarrassment. Husband, let's go, now. Karen. No, I'm not leaving. They can't treat us this way. By this point, Dave had signaled to our security guy who worked weekend nights. He approached the table. Security. Folks, I need you to exit the restaurant immediately, or I'll have to call the police for trespassing. Karen finally seemed to realize she wasn't going to win this battle. She stood up, knocking her chair backward dramatically. Karen. Fine. This place is terrible anyway. I'm going to leave a 1-star review and tell everyone about your horrible service. As she stormed toward the exit, something unexpected happened. The customers in the restaurant began to applaud. It started with just a few people at nearby tables, but quickly spread until almost everyone was clapping not for Karen, but for Dave and Ellie standing up to her bullying. Karen's face turned bright red as she realized the entire restaurant was essentially cheering for her removal. Her husband and kids looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. They hurried out without looking back. After they left, Dave put his arm around Ellie's shoulders and asked if she was okay. She nodded and gave him a thumbs up. Then Dave did something awesome. He announced to the restaurant that Ellie's tables would all receive a free appetizer or dessert that night. More applause followed. Later that night, when things slowed down, Ellie showed me a note a customer had left her. It read, "You were graceful and professional in the face of ignorance. Thank you for your excellent service." Along with it was a $50 tip on a $1.30 meal. The next day, Dave told us he had permanently banned Karen from the restaurant and added her to our Wall of Shame, a private photo album we keep behind the host's stand of customers who are no longer welcome due to abusive behavior toward staff. The irony of the whole situation is that if Karen had simply written down her order as Ellie requested, she would have received perfect service. Ellie never makes mistakes with written orders. Instead, Karen got herself banned from one of the most popular restaurants in town, and I'm pretty sure those one-star reviews she threatened to write will be drowned out by all the positive reviews from customers who witnessed her disgusting behavior and our management's excellent response. Story 3. Yesterday was my son's 8th birthday, and what should have been a simple celebration turned into one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. I still can't believe the audacity of some people. I had reserved a table at Pizza Palace, my son's favorite restaurant, 2 weeks in advance. It's a popular place with an arcade section, and weekend reservations are hard to get. I specifically requested their party corner, which has a big round table that can fit 10 people and is partially separated from the rest of the dining area. I arrived an hour early to decorate. The staff was super helpful, allowing me to put up the space-themed decorations my son had picked out. I hung a Happy 8th Birthday Tommy banner, placed space rocket centerpieces, and set up gift bags for the 5 friends who would be joining us. I even brought a tablecloth with planets and stars on it. The restaurant manager helped me set everything up, and by the time we finished, the table looked amazing. I stepped outside to make a quick call to the bakery about the cake we'd ordered, which was supposed to be delivered to the restaurant during our meal. The call took about 10 minutes, and when I came back inside, I saw something that made my jaw drop. A woman I'd never seen before was sitting at our decorated table with what looked like her husband and 2 teenage kids. They were moving our decorations aside to make room for their drinks, which the waitress had just delivered. The happy birthday banner was dangling half removed from the wall behind them. I approached the table, thinking there must be some misunderstanding. Excuse me, there seems to be a mix-up. This table is reserved for my son's birthday party. The woman barely looked up from her menu. Woman, we're sitting here now. There are plenty of other tables. I was so shocked by her dismissive tone that it took me a second to respond. No, you don't understand. I reserved this specific table 2 weeks ago. I just finished decorating it for my son's party. See the birthday banner and gift bags? She finally looked at me properly, appearing annoyed that I was still standing there. Woman, well, you weren't here when we arrived, and we need a table for 4. The hostess wasn't at her station, so we seated ourselves. First come, first served. But I was here. I just stepped outside to make a phone call. This table is clearly decorated for a child's birthday party. The woman's husband looked uncomfortable but said nothing. The 2 teenagers were staring at their phones, pretending not to notice what was happening. Woman, look, we're already seated, and our drinks are here. I'm not moving my family. Your reservation clearly wasn't that important if you left the table empty. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked around for help and saw our waitress heading toward the table. Waitress, is everything all right here? Before I could answer, the woman jumped in. Woman, everything's fine. We're ready to order. I'll have the meat lover's pizza and a side salad. I interrupted. No, everything is not fine. I reserved this table for my son's birthday party. I decorated it, and I just stepped outside for a few minutes to make a call." The waitress looked confused. Waitress: "Ma'am, this is the reserved party table. I saw this parent setting it up earlier. There's a reservation under Tommy's birthday in our system." Woman: "Well, we're sitting here now, and we've already gotten our drinks. You can't expect us to move with our drinks. That's bad customer service." The waitress seemed unsure how to handle the situation. "Waitress, let me get my manager." While the waitress went to find the manager, I checked my watch. My son and my husband would be arriving with the other kids in about 15 minutes. The woman and her family continued to look at their menus as if I wasn't standing there. Woman: "The pepperoni looks good too. What do you kids want?" I was getting increasingly frustrated. Me: "This is ridiculous. You can clearly see this table was set up for a child's birthday. There's a banner with my son's name on it right behind you." Woman: "If it was so important, you shouldn't have left it unattended. Consider this a lesson learned." At this point, the manager arrived with the waitress. Manager: "What seems to be the problem?" I explained the situation, and the manager turned to the woman. Manager: "Ma'am, this table was reserved 2 weeks ago for a birthday party. I personally helped set up the decorations. I'm going to have to ask you to move to another table." Woman: "We're already seated with our drinks. I want to speak to the owner. This is unacceptable customer service." Manager: "I am the owner, and I'm telling you that this table is reserved." The woman's face turned red. Woman: "Fine, we'll move, but I expect our entire meal to be complimentary for this inconvenience." The manager's expression hardened. Manager: "Actually, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the restaurant. We don't tolerate customers who take over reserved tables and then demand free food." Woman: "What? You can't kick us out. We're paying customers." Manager: "You haven't paid for anything yet, and you're disrupting a child's birthday celebration. Please leave now, or I'll have to call security." The woman's husband finally spoke up. Husband: "Come on, let's just go. This is embarrassing." Woman: "No, I'm not leaving. I have rights as a customer." The manager sighed and pulled out his phone. Manager: "I'm calling security." At that point, the woman's husband stood up. Husband: "We're leaving. Kids, grab your things." The teenagers looked mortified as they gathered their belongings. The woman remained seated, fuming. Woman: "This is discrimination. I'll write a terrible review online." Husband: "Get up, now." Something in his tone finally got through to her. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and stormed toward the exit, but not before turning back to deliver one last comment. Woman: "Your son's party decorations are tacky anyway. Space theme? So unoriginal." After they left, the manager helped me fix the decorations that had been disturbed. He apologized profusely and offered a complimentary dessert for the party. My son and his friends arrived a few minutes later, completely unaware of the drama that had just unfolded. The party went on as planned, and Tommy had a blast. As we were leaving, the manager told me the woman had actually come back without her family and tried to get a table again, but he had refused her service. He said she'd been standing outside taking photos of the restaurant, probably for that negative review she threatened to write. The whole experience was surreal. I still can't understand the mindset of someone who would see a clearly decorated birthday table and decide to sit there anyway. The entitlement of some people is truly astounding. At least my son had a great birthday, and I have a story that none of us will forget anytime soon. Story 4. This happened just last weekend, and I'm still processing the sheer audacity of what went down at my cousin's baby celebration. For some background, my cousin and his wife just had their first baby about a month ago, a beautiful little girl they named Olivia Rose. They'd been trying for years, went through fertility treatments, and were absolutely over the moon when they finally welcomed their daughter. This past weekend, they hosted a small gathering at their house to celebrate her arrival, Not quite a traditional baby shower since those usually happen before the birth. More of a meet the baby party. The gathering was mostly family and close friends, about 20 people total. Everyone was having a great time, taking turns holding little Olivia, giving gifts, and enjoying the food and drinks. My cousin and his wife were glowing with pride as they showed off their daughter. Enter my cousin's wife's coworker, let's call her Karen. I'd never met her before, but apparently she works in the same department as my cousin's wife and had been friendly enough that she got an invitation to the celebration. She arrived about an hour late, didn't bring a gift, which isn't a huge deal, but worth noting given what happened next, and seemed weirdly tense from the moment she arrived. At first, she just kept to herself, hardly interacting with anyone. But then my cousin's wife went around introducing the baby to everyone who hadn't held her yet. When she got to Karen, things got weird. My cousin's wife, Karen, would you like to hold Olivia? Karen, staring at the baby with a strange expression, so you really went with Olivia, huh? My cousin's wife, confused, yes. Olivia Rose, isn't she beautiful? Karen, with a tight smile, I can't believe you actually used that name after I told you I was saving it. The room didn't exactly go silent, but those of us nearby definitely noticed the awkward exchange. My cousin's wife looked completely baffled. My cousin's wife, what do you mean? We never discussed baby names. Karen, yes, we did. About 7 months ago in the break room. I specifically said I loved the name Olivia and was saving it for my future daughter. You were there. My cousin's wife, I honestly don't remember that conversation. And even if we did talk about names, I wouldn't have thought you were claiming the name. We had decided on Olivia months before that. Karen, voice rising, well, you should have told me then. I've been planning to use that name for years. I've got journals from high school where I wrote about naming my future daughter Olivia. At this point, people were definitely staring. My cousin came over, still smiling but clearly confused about what was happening. My cousin, is everything okay over here? Karen, no, everything is not okay. Your wife stole my baby name. I specifically told her I was saving Olivia for my daughter. My cousin, trying to lighten the mood, well, no harm done. There can be more than one Olivia in the world, right? Karen, that's not the point. I claimed it first. And now when I have a daughter, people will think I copied you. My cousin's wife was holding Olivia closer now, looking uncomfortable. My cousin's wife, Karen, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding, but we've already named our daughter. The birth certificate is finalized. There's nothing to discuss. Karen, practically shouting, now you can change it. Babies don't know their names yet. She's only a month old. Several relatives moved closer, including my aunt, my cousin's mother, who has zero tolerance for nonsense. My aunt, excuse me, who are you exactly? Karen, I'm Karen, I work with cousin's wife. And she knew I was saving the name Olivia. My aunt, completely deadpan, and are you currently pregnant? Karen, no, but I will be someday, and... My aunt, do you have a partner you're planning to have this hypothetical baby with? Karen, flustered, not yet, but that's not the point. My aunt, so let me get this straight. You want my son and daughter-in-law to change their actual baby's legal name because someday you might have a baby that you might want to give the same name to. When laid out like that, Karen seemed to realize how absurd she sounded, but instead of backing down, she doubled down. Karen, you don't understand. I've been planning this my whole life. Olivia was supposed to be my daughter's name. It was my grandmother's name. My cousin's wife, now looking concerned, I didn't know that. We chose Olivia because we both loved it, not to upset you. Karen, well, I am upset, and I think you owe me the courtesy of at least considering a name change. What about your second choice name? What was that? My cousin, finally losing patience, we're not changing our daughter's name. I'm sorry if you're disappointed, but this conversation is over. Karen, looking around the room for support, is everyone okay with this? They've stolen my baby name, and no one cares? The room was awkwardly silent. Karen's face was getting redder by the second. My cousin's wife tried once more to defuse the situation. My cousin's wife, Karen, there are lots of beautiful names out there. And honestly, by the time you have a child, Olivia might not even be as popular anymore. This was apparently the wrong thing to say. Karen, so you admit you took it because it's popular. You didn't even care about the name. You just wanted what's trendy. My cousin, that's not what she said at all. Look, I think you should take some time to cool down. Maybe we can talk about this another time. Karen, gathering her purse, there's nothing to talk about. You've made your choice. But don't expect me to call her by that name. As far as I'm concerned, she's Baby X. Honestly, we all just stared as she stormed toward the door. Before leaving, she turned back for one final shot. Karen, and just so you know, I'm going to tell everyone at work what you did. We'll see how people feel about name thieves in the office. After she slammed the door, there was a moment of stunned silence before everyone started talking at once. My cousin's wife looked mortified and kept apologizing for inviting her. It turns out she barely knew Karen, they'd only worked together for about a year, and Karen had invited herself to the party after overhearing others discussing it. My cousin's wife's best friend, who works at the same company but in a different department, filled us in on some context. Apparently, Karen had been vocal about wanting to be a mother for years, but hadn't had much luck with relationships. She'd talk about her future children as if they were already planned, down to their names, schools, and hobbies. The name Olivia had indeed come up in her conversations, but nobody took her dibs on the name seriously, especially since she wasn't even in a relationship, let alone pregnant. The rest of the party continued, but there was definitely a weird vibe for a while. My cousin tried to make light of it, joking that they should have a second baby and name it whatever Karen's last name was, just to really drive her crazy. That finally got everyone laughing again. The next day, my cousin's wife got several messages from coworkers saying Karen was ranting on social media about name theft and how some people have no respect for others' plans. She didn't name names, but anyone who knew about the baby could figure out who she was talking about. The epilogue to this story came yesterday when my cousin texted the family group chat. Karen had apparently gone to HR to complain about the hostile work environment my cousin's wife had created by stealing her baby's name. The HR person, who has two brain cells to rub together, told Karen that baby names cannot be copyrighted, reserved, or stolen, and suggested she seek counseling for her attachment to a hypothetical future child's name. Karen has now requested a department transfer because she cannot bear to be reminded of what was taken from her every day. My cousin's wife is happy to approve that transfer request. Little Olivia, meanwhile, remains blissfully unaware of all the drama her name has caused, and something tells me she'll grow up hearing the story of Crazy Karen and the stolen name at every family gathering for years to come.